Good afternoon, everybody.
It's run the full gamut.
Welcome to the Gulf Shore City Council Work Session Meeting, January the 20th. I'll call the meeting to order, and our councilman discussion period for Philip Harris is not going to happen because Philip's not here. Any other council person have any comments they want to make on his behalf? We'll blame it on him.
Ooh, there's an idea.
There's an idea. So given that, I'm going to revisit why we're here today. This is a work session meeting. This is our opportunity to go over the issues that will be potentially on the agenda next Monday or soon thereafter, after going through advertising where necessary. So it's your opportunity to talk to us about these, ask questions, give us ideas and things to think about as we consider these in the time between now and when we vote on them. So don't be shy. Raise your hand. You got anything you want us to know? I'll call on you. You can come to the podium and tell us what you think. And we've got a lot on the agenda tonight, so I anticipate a lot of questions. And I'm not going to put anybody on the timer. We're going to ask you if you will please limit your comments to about 3 minutes. And so we can try to get through this in an orderly manner. So if you can do that, it would be appreciated, and I will let you know if I think you've gone too long. So with that, the first thing on the agenda is a presentation from Baldwin County EMC, Carolyn Doty.
I talk fast, Mayor, so you don't put the hook on me here. Good to see y'all. Jennifer, good to see you out there. Congratulations. Before we get to the really important business tonight, I just want to take a quick reminder. All of you get your Alabama Living magazine from Baldwin EMC every month, and I'm sure you all peruse it from front to back cover. And I like to encourage you to keep doing that because there's a lot of good information in here. The first about 8 pages of stuff from Baldwin EMC help keep up with what's going on here. A couple of things that are coming up real quick right now is we've got scholarship availability through Operation Roundup. As we've talked before, Operation Roundup is the charitable partner of Baldwin EMC. It is funded by everyone here, everybody that agrees to round your bill up to the next highest dollar every month. That money goes in there. It started back in, I think, 2004. So far, we've been able to give away almost $7.5 million back to people in our communities that have temporary, bumps in the road where they may need a little assistance with housing or food or shelter or clothing, something like that. They give to a lot of the organizations around that help everybody out too. Do a lot of work in the schools, like I say, with the scholarships. That deadline's coming up in a couple of weeks. So if you know anybody that's a senior this year, I think the scholarship's for $37.50 a year. So it's not only for seniors, but if you're already in college, you could agree to that. So I encourage you to pay attention and see what all's going on in here. And y'all know that you can call on me anytime you've got any questions, any problems. And I'll be honest with you, all I'm going to do is turn around and call this gentleman right back here. Come on up here. This is Hunter Robinson, the CEO at Baldwin EMC. And Hunter's here with the main important thing that Jason and Philip and the Finance Committee will be very excited about.
Yeah, as you know, we appreciate the relationship with the City of Gulf Shores. We want to be here for you. If there's anything we can do, reach out at any point in time. As you know, this check is based off the taxes we collect from the services we provide. It's around $1.3 million. So thank you again for all that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't leave.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming and the support for our community and your partnership. Thank you.
Is that a check? That's it.
Next item on the agenda is Capital Projects Department. We've got a couple of things here to discuss. Clint, thank you.
Yes, sir. The first one we've got here is in regards to the City Hall campus renovations and addition. And so this is, the recommendation is to authorize the selection of Walcott Adams Verneuille Architects and accept their proposal in an amount not to exceed $99,000 for professional services related to the renovations and additions to the City Hall, to the Gulf Shore City Hall campus. So as you know, with the construction of the new Justice Center across the street and where the executive offices are and the building department, the courts and the detectives that currently use the first floors of those two buildings will be going to the Justice Center at some point in this year. And so those 2 floors will need to be reconfigured and remodeled to allow for utilization by other city departments. And additionally, the long-term goal is to construct a 3rd building over there so that those 3 buildings will be able to accommodate everyone from City Hall over there, because this is a rather aging building that is going to need some pretty costly repairs in the future. So that's our long-term goal, is to get everybody consolidated onto one side of the street. And so the city staff requested a proposal from Walcott Adams to perform architectural services for this project. And so this is basically phase 1, which would be the preliminary design services and the schematic design. And so they'll perform a needs assessment and space programming by department to maximize efficiency, provide conceptual floor plans and massing studies, 3D renderings, and prepare a preliminary construction budget, and then the schematic design to include floor plans, a life safety study, and architectural site plan. And so once this preliminary contract is complete, then we're going to know how much the project's going to cost, figure out how we're going to do it in phases, because this is not going to be all one phase. It's going to be constructed in phases. And so then we'll come back, and once we know exactly what we're building, we'll get a final proposal from them to do the construction documents. And so we have $500,000 budgeted in this year's budget for architectural services. So like I said, this first phase is $99,000 of that. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that you guys have.
Council, any questions? I've got a comment for those of you that weren't around when Walcott Adams helped us change the existing high school, the old campus, that existing high school from when Baldwin County had it into when we moved in. They took over on the last day. They had a plan, but they took over on the last day of school in the spring. And by the first day of fall classes, we had a building to move into, and it'd be completely renovated and redone to have what you see today. An amazing job in a short period of time. Not only did they do the architecture, they handled the on-site management of the work, and it was phenomenal. And where's Noel? Noel Hand and his crew was deeply involved in that, but they did an amazing job over there getting us ready in a short period of time. And what we have is opportunities next door to create a better city hall situation and get away from spending a whole lot of money on old buildings that are somewhat dysfunctional in today's world. So this is a big opportunity for us to re-envision and reimagine the municipal campus here and create a more usable, visitor-friendly facility. So an important opportunity. So any questions from the audience or comments on this process? Clint, you got another one?
Yes, sir. So this next one is to authorize Capital Projects Department to pursue an ALDOT Rebuild Alabama Act grant, commonly referred to as the RAA grant. So we applied for this last year and we didn't get it. But so basically it would fund additional streets resurfacing for the city. So we would submit a total package. The maximum is $250,000. And so we would have a match of around $45,000. But so it would provide an extra $200,000 to the city to basically add to the amount of streets that we'll be able to resurface this year. And the applications are due in February, and Civil Southeast will submit the application on behalf of the city if it's approved tonight or next week. And we do have, of course, our streets resurfacing budget, so our match would just come out of what we already have budgeted. And just a side note, we are close to being done with the streets assessment, so that we'll be determining which streets we go after this year. And so hopefully, if we were to get this, we would just be able to add to that contract. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Clint, council, questions, comments? Audience, anybody? Thank you, Clint. Next, Dan Bond.
Nope, Cindy.
Cindy.
I'm sorry, Cindy. You're ready. Cindy, sorry about that.
That's all right.
I turned the page too soon.
We budgeted for debt service this year for 5 years of debt service on a $1 million loan for police vehicles and equipment. I requested quotes from the area banks that are usually active with the city, and 7 banks responded, with 6 providing interest rates. 1 declined to quote. And South State Bank offered the lowest interest rate at 3.72 for 5 years on a tax-exempt, non-bank qualified line of credit. Well, actually, it's a loan, not a line. And South State has said that they will pay reasonable attorney's fees related to the debt. The Finance Committee has reviewed and they elected to open a new loan at 3.72 with South State. And that's the recommendation for next week. And our bond counselor, Lee Birchall, will prepare the closing papers and minutes for that meeting.
Thank you, Cindy. Council, any questions or comments? Audience, anybody? Cindy, thanks.
Thank you.
Now, Dan.
Mayor, so what you have before you tonight is a resolution that will authorize the mayor to accept an award and execute a Go Mesa grant funding agreement with ADC&R for the Waterway Village Pedestrian Bridge Park project in an amount not to exceed $3,606,465. This is funding through the Go Mesa grant program, which is royalties from offshore oil leases that are shared across the Gulf states. And so we were selected by the state for this project. This will construct pedestrian plazas and park spaces on the north and south sides of the new pedestrian bridge that is currently under construction. And it's going to make that a really nice event space and focal point for the community. So this grant is 100%, cover 100% of the construction costs. The project is currently under design with WAS Design, and we hope to get it out to bid this summer, start construction on these park plazas. That'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Council, questions, comments? Audience, anybody? Yes, ma'am. Please do. Introduce yourself so everybody at home will know who's speaking.
My name is Sandra Seek. Regarding the Go Mesa grant, last year in October, I addressed the board with Windmill Ridge Road and 4th Avenue, or 4th Street. And I was told that there was a grant that y'all were working on. I was thinking it was the Go Mesa. But
Yes, ma'am. We submitted both of those projects. We submitted that one as well as this one, and DCNR selected this project out of those.
well, the 4th Street Bridge has been out 17 years. So do you know what the hangup is?
I don't, but I think
We've got a plan on that. John, you want to?
Well, I was just going to say, we did budget to replace the bridge this year with a pedestrian bridge, so it is in the budget. Clint has been working on procuring the bridge, and that is something that should happen this year.
What about Windmill Ridge?
Windmill Ridge, we did the paving last year, and again, we did not receive the grant for any additional
So what I was told
improvements.
by you, Mayor, that if we did not receive the grant regarding Windmill Ridge, that you would see about allocating resources for the expansion.
And we are expanding, we're fixing the pedestrian bridge. We're not doing anything additional on Windmill Ridge at this point in time, but where we will be fixing the pedestrian bridge for pedestrians, not for vehicular traffic. We will reopen that as it was originally designed, with a pedestrian bridge with some fishing elements and improved sidewalk connections to that. It's a pedestrian process, not a vehicular process.
Okay, so Windmill Ridge is not in the focus.
Not this year.
So when will it be? I've been there since '02, and it's the same road.
We know
And
that
people are walking and gonna get hit and killed.
we hope not, and we know that we've got some improvements coming on that, and we're going to be and have done some sidewalk work out there, and we will continue to redo some of that in some of the areas we didn't get done. But we're not working on the vehicular side of that area.
Okay, I'll just make one last comment is, when I see the grant money, whether it be from Alabama or whoever, and resources being allocated to the bridge to nowhere, the pedestrian, industry, blah, blah, blah. Windmill Ridge is the go-through. And we get actually landlocked on big events. It's a tourist town. We understand it. That's why I love it. But if you ever, and I invited y'all last year to come sit in the yard. When there's an event coming, we're landlocked. We can't get out, can't ride a bike, you can't walk. So what about us, the taxpayer? Instead of new stuff, can we fix what we have?
We will have that on the discussion and potential agenda for next year. It won't happen this year.
Thank you.
Sorry. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Thank you, Dan. Planning and zoning, Scott.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This item is a proposed text amendment to the zoning ordinance pertaining to vacation rental signs. So in your packet, you have the proposed language. We're proposing modifications to Article 6 of the zoning ordinance, Section 6-18, specifically about vacation rental dwelling units. Subsections A, B, C, and D have some minor changes. They're typically just terminology changes. So for instance, we reference dwelling units license for vacation rental. Those will all change to just vacation rental dwelling units. We also refer to the overlay as the single family and duplex tourist rental overlay. We change that to single family and duplex vacation rental overlay. So again, subsections A, B, C, D are really just terminology changes. The subsection B goes over where these proposed changes apply in the city. So vacation rental, short-term rental, they're allowed in the single family and duplex vacation rental overlay, which is single family or duplex zoned underneath. Your neighborhood business, your general business, your tourist business, ICW North and South zoning districts, as well as within PUDs, planned unit developments, multifamily specifically designated for vacation rental. This map shows the overlay district outlined in green on the map. The underlying zoning of all these areas within the overlay are single family or duplex residential, so R1, 3, 4, or 5, or R2. You can see the majority of it is the western 3/4 of West Beach Boulevard, West Lagoon Avenue, and there's a portion of Highway 180 on the Lagoon side, on the south side of the highway. Today, in subsection F, section 6-18F, the signs that are allowed, number 1 says no signs other than that permitted in the underlying district shall be permitted. So that's what's allowed today. And we're going to focus most of the conversation on the residential zones because that's where we're seeing the concern or the signs in the residential zones, not necessarily in the commercial zone properties. So right now, these signs are pretty much what we call exempt, or they don't require a specific permit to be placed. They just have to follow the rules. So you may post your address number, the house number of the structure, an attached nameplate no more than 2 square feet, a real estate sign. So a sign when your property is for sale, it can go up to 6 square feet. You can have window signs and you can have political signs. I will point out, I know we discussed in the past, but we use this terminology to describe the size or the location or the time allowed for a sign. These terms don't indicate the message that may be displayed. So we say a political sign, but that's just a sign that may be displayed within a certain time before or after an election. It can have any message on it. So some of the concerns we've heard that have caused us to put together this proposal. This is an image standing on West Beach Boulevard. I know this is hard to see on a 2D, photograph, but if you look closely, there's 17 freestanding signs visible from this single viewpoint. And that's not including any signs on the structures. That's just the freestanding pole-mounted signs. Let me back up. Let me point out, when you look in this image, you see the utility poles. As a pretty good rule of thumb, those utility poles are typically placed right about the edge of the right-of-way and the property line. So in other words, if you see a sign or anything between the utility pole and the street, that's probably in the right of way, in the public right of way. That, our longstanding rule is no signs in the right of way outside of, regulatory signs that the city or other governmental agencies place. So just as we're going through the pictures, if you see a sign inside that utility pole line, it's probably illegally placed today. Just some other examples, if you drive around the city, these blue signs are probably what we call identification signs. That brown one is naming the name of the property. It does have an address on it. And then there's a real estate sign. Again, some vacation rental identification signs and some real estate signs. That's 5 in a row. This one, the image on the left, I didn't measure this one. It's probably larger than what's allowed. I just kind of wanted to show that, the graffiti kind of indicates that it may not be well maintained. The property owner or the sign person responsible for the signs probably not checking on it. So it's just, it goes to the questions and concerns we've received about the number of signs, the clutter of signs, the condition of the signs that are currently out there. Image on the right is West Lagoon. So this is a single property. You have the Rent Me identification sign. The one in the background in the center, I think that's indicating the name of the property. And it does have the address on it on West Lagoon. And then the white sign on the right in the foreground is also an address sign. I do want to point out the signs I'll try to blur some. We're not trying to pick on anybody or single out any companies or individuals. It's just we use these as examples. So that is what is allowed today and what is out there today. The proposal that has come from the Planning Commission, and this will pertain to all properties with vacation rental units on them. So not just residential, but all of them. The idea is all signs must be permitted now. So no more exempt signs except for that one temporary real estate sign. The address numbers, an identification sign, a nameplate sign. Gulf front lots will have 2 small signs allowed on either side of the structure. A real estate sign when the property is for sale. And we just like to reiterate that no signs are allowed in or over the public right of way. So the address number sign, the city is, you'll soon see, pretty serious about the address numbers, and that's a good thing from a public safety standpoint. We want our first responders, our emergency responders to know where they're going. And just from a traffic management, and we want people to know where they're going as well. So the address numbers are emphasized multiple places. So in the proposal, it would allow a minimum of 4-inch up to 8-inch tall numbers on the front facade of the house that's clearly visible and readable from the right of way. It mentions the building code, so the International Residential Code, I think the Fire Code, both have some standards requiring your address numbers to be placed. So this is really just repeating what that is. And in the case of vacation rental dwelling unit located on a Gulf front lot, you need to display those numbers on the Gulf side as well. The proposed language references Code of Ordinances, Section 20-4 and 7-126. There's that little red outline just showing you the address number. So Code of Ordinances, Section -126, there on the bottom left, all beachfront locations, and it has a carve out for multifamily and single and 2-family dwellings, must show their street numbers in contrasting colors, at least 4 inches side on the seaward side. And then Code of Ordinances section, let's do bottom right, 20-4. On properties with Gulf side yards, frontage numbers shall be placed on the Gulf side of the building or at the end of the walkover. And 20-3 upper right, this is current Code of Ordinances. So properties that are 50 feet or more from the property line must display their address numbers, and it gives you a variety of options there. The image on the upper left is a Gulf side property out West Beach. So the image, you're standing with the Gulf to your back, looking northward. So you can see they've displayed their address number. The image in the bottom center, that's not on the beach, but that is in the Gulf Shores. It's just a good example that I came across. That's 4x4. I think that's a plastic composite post with very large contrasting numbers, so it's very clear what your address is.
Is that allowed in the right of way?
No, sir, as we're proposing it, it would need to be at the property line.
Okay.
So your identification signs, again, this is just an example we came across. The identification sign would be the ones that are highlighted in red, or what we'd call an identification sign. The default is no more than 6 square feet and mounted flat to the front facade of the structure. That's kind of what our default is, what we want all of them to be on the structure itself. Again, this is just an example. I didn't measure this one, but no more than 6 square feet. That's probably pretty close to 6 square feet. Now, there is a carve out for some of the properties that are a little farther away from the road. So this image shows the transition between R15, the smaller, denser residential lots, into R14. And this next image shows that transition from R14 to R13. So the carve out is all properties that are zoned R13 and properties that are zoned R14 and abutting the Little Lagoon. So you can see in this image, the Gulf side, R14, most of the houses are pretty close to the road. On the north side, on the Lagoon side, they're set back farther from the road. And then when you transition westward into R13, most of the houses are a little farther set back. So the idea is you can have one or the other. It's an either or. Either, let me back up, either mounted flat to the facade or a freestanding sign, similar to this one. So we mentioned including rider signs, so you can have 6 square feet, including rider signs. Those smaller signs below are what we're calling the rider signs. However, the way we measure this is we draw the smallest rectangle we can around all the signs, length times width, and that has to be 6 feet or smaller. So that's the limit on this identification sign. Just for the freestanding will just be for those R13, R14 on the Lagoon lots. And no more than 6 feet in height. The nameplate sign, back to the Bama Bliss again. So that lower sign we're calling an identification sign. The nameplate sign is this upper sign. It shall be no more than 4 square feet and mounted flat to the front facade of the structure. And that's all. There's no carve out for it to be freestanding. There was some discussion on there are some structures out there that have more unique signs to the properties. So there is an allowance if it is architecturally incorporated, unique to the property. So like the upper right sand dollar, I assume that's a sand dollar with the sign on it. But then, the others are individual letters mounted to the facade. So in other words, if it's just a metal or plastic panel screwed to the front facade, you can go 4 square feet. If it's more architecturally incorporated and unique to the property, you can go to 8 square feet. The fence and detached signs, so these pertain only to Gulf side properties. You would be allowed 1 sign on either side of your property, so on the east or the west side, not to exceed 60 square inches. And I know that bigger picture is hard to see, but this is just an example. 60 square inches is pretty small, so think 6 inches by 10 inches. A sheet of letter, notebook paper, 8.5 by 11 is 93.5 square inches. So this is a very small sign, no more than 3 feet above the ground. The idea there is, again, we're not regulating the message, but often we see people trying to prevent people using it as a public access. I don't know if that's me. I'm sorry. I know I'm talking a long time. But the idea there is to allow people to have a small sign to just to indicate, this is not public parking. This is not a public access. This is private property. So that's what those are. And again, that's only Gulf side properties. Real estate signs. So the image is the same. This is, I think, on West Lagoon. The image on the left is the for sale or the real estate sign. The image on the right is going to be the identification sign. So this will be only for properties that are actively for sale. Excuse me. They may post a for sale sign, not to exceed 6 square feet and no taller than 6 feet above grade. Now this one, I did measure this one. It's 5 square feet I don't know if I could find one that was right at 6, but this is a pretty typical real estate sign. It's either this or far too large. There were some that are 3 feet by 4 feet, some are 4 by 4, so they're like 16 square feet. So they're more than double what's currently allowed, which is 6 square feet. So this is what we're calling a real estate sign. All right, that's the list. And just to recap, so the address numbers, an identification sign, and then the nameplate sign. So that's kind of the 3 that everybody gets. I didn't indicate on this image, but so Gulf front lots can have that fence or detached sign on either side, on the east or west side, that small 60 square inch sign. And then if you're actively for sale, you may post a real estate sign. So all these listed except for real estate must be permitted. So they have to come to the planning department, submit the application, we will review it and approve it. The real estate sign as presented would be exempt. Again, they have to follow those minimum or maximum standards. A very important portion of this, and this is not written into the zoning ordinance, this is written into your adoption ordinance, is kind of the grandfathering clause. That's a wall of text, and I hate to read the whole thing, but it reiterates that signs improperly placed within the public right-of-way shall be removed immediately. Again, any sign in the right-of-way, unless it's placed by the government and it's a regulatory sign, they were improperly placed to begin with, so they shouldn't be there today. Also, any attached sign, so like the nameplate signs, if they were existing as of December 16th, they be considered non-conforming or legal non-conforming. That date is when the Planning Commission heard it and made their recommendation. Thank you to the Gulf Shores Police Department. What they did is an officer drove with his dash cam on. So we drove through all the areas that had the vacation rental. So we have an image of all the signs that were present on December 16th. So we know what's out there. We have a record of that. So if one has popped up between then and now, it's probably improperly placed to begin with. But we do have a record of this date, and we can change it. But we do have good evidence for December 16th. So the detached signs that are individually customized, unique to the property, and complementary to the principal structure. Note this is detached signs. So we were asked about some of the larger signs, or some that may look like a piece of furniture or may appear to be like pilings or something that have a sign on them. Those were probably improperly placed to begin with, but there was a lot of discussion that those that again are unique to the property, that are in good condition, to allow them to stay as legal non-conforming. But all of these legal non-conforming, they may not be expanded. If they ever fall apart, get blown away, or anything like that, they can't be replaced. You'll have to follow the zoning ordinance in effect at that time. But a lot of the existing, the discussion was to allow those to remain, but just not expand or be replaced. And recommendation, so the Planning Commission actually had a series of meetings. October, November, they had a work session in early December, and then at their December 16th regular meeting, they held a public hearing, discussed, and voted to recommend this amendment. And just as a reminder, this will not be on next week's agenda. It has to be advertised prior. That's the end of my report. If the lights don't go out, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scott. Council, questions or comments? Audience?
I have a question.
You go ahead.
Some clarification on the lagoon, the ones that are, you can have a sign for the lagoon. So basically, if they would just need to remove the existing sign to within, not in the right of way, if they are a lagoon front property.
Well, any sign in the right of way should not be there.
Right.
More of a code enforcement issue, but what we'll probably do is make sure everyone's aware of it. Assuming this passes, we'll probably go through a kind of informational notification campaign, let everyone have the chance to remove those that are in the right of way in the wrong. And then we'll probably go through, we may just remove them ourselves. It's our right of way, it's our responsibility. So a lot of signs may just get removed, but we would give the property owners or the sign owners the opportunity to remove them themselves.
But Is this saying that they don't need to be removed, just moved for the lagoon front?
Potentially, yes, they could, assuming they meet the square footage, the height, the location requirements, they potentially could just back them up.
Okay, so, because on West Lagoon and West Beach, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the majority, at least on West Lagoon. And then after, the pass on West Beach, to me, then we're not really changing anything other than asking them to move them out of the right of way. So I think we'd still have all of those signs, they just would be in a different spot, a few feet further back.
But potentially, now some have multiple signs, so again, you get one under this proposal, but you may be right, some of them may just be simply moved back.
And I'd like to comment on that because I've been following this in the Planning Commission. I appreciate all the hard work from the Planning Commission. I appreciate the staff's efforts to allow citizen input and appreciate the recommendations coming before us. And I'm generally in favor of the recommendation. I think it is a good start. I do, however, have one problem, and that's alluding to what Ms. Guthrie is describing as those freestanding signs. The point has been made that those signs are necessary for vacation rentals and identification purposes. I find that argument to not hold water. I believe most people locate their destinations by GPS now, and that those signs are more advertising than actual identification. In addition to that, so I don't like the part of the ordinance that allows a freestanding sign on West Lagoon or down West Beach on the lagoon properties. We already have the issue of location addressed in our ordinances. I think ordinance 20-3 states that if your property is less than 50 feet from the road, that you are required to put a numbered sign within 50 feet of or on the property line, the property line to the road. So we've already addressed the location issue with our ordinance that says you should have a numbered plate sign there. So I don't think there's a necessity to have not, in addition to that numbered plate sign, have also a vacation rental sign or a management company sign in addition to that, because one, that number plated sign will offer identification purposes, and two, I don't think the majority of people actually use those signs for identification purposes. I think GPS is very accurate, and traveled all over the country, Airbnbs and VRBOs, and I've never seen other communities have these large signs identifying properties, and I've been able to find my vacation rental pretty easily in other locales. So personally, I don't think it's necessary to do that. So I think that kind of addresses what Jennifer was discussing and one of the concerns. So I approve of the recommendation. I appreciate all the hard work. The only change I would want to make, and I would plan on making an amendment to the recommendation, is to not allow that freestanding sign. If you want a sign, you can put it on the side of your building that you own, but you shouldn't put it I don't think you should put it in the yard other than that nameplate that's already part of our ordinance.
Yes, sir. So back on the screen again, I did not do the language from the adopted building code, so the International Residential Code, I believe the Fire Code as well, both already have language that requires address numbers to be visible and legible from the public street. The Code of Ordinances in multiple places, again, mentions those address numbers. 20-3, that upper right paragraph, that's the one that you're referencing, Councilman, that said if the building is situated more than 50 feet from the front property line, the frontage number of such property shall be conspicuously displayed. So there's that. And just back to some of our example pictures. I would guess that not a single one of those has an address on it. I know I blurred them out, but I don't think they have addresses. That brown one does have an address, but the other three don't. So kind of what you're saying, Councilman Dyke, and many of them are not about the address or the location. It's about the whatever message they're putting forth.
Question, on the beach, we're required to put numbers on the beach side of properties on the beach side of the road.
Yes, sir, you're supposed to.
or do we have any restriction on doing that on the lagoon side, the water side on the properties adjacent to the lagoon?
In your restriction, no, sir, I've not seen anything that says you can or can't, so.
Well, because I think there's an opportunity, there's, in some cases, a need to be able to show where you are if you're inviting someone to come buy water, or if you're going, you've rented it and you go out and you're trying to come back and find it by water. Those would be, I think, potentially important. And I just want to make sure that that was allowable if it were desired. That was on the real.
Yes, sir, that seems, I mean, I guess the point of, on the Gulf side is obviously you're, you know, in the Gulf on the beach, you need to be able to find, or a first responder needs to find from that direction. But I think the lagoon is from a boat traffic makes sense as well. We can incorporate that.
I just think it'd be nice to have, or allowed to have more so that, not required, but allowed.
Yes, sir.
It's required on the beach side, but not, but it would just be allowed on the water side.
Yes, sir.
On the lagoon side. Thank you. Anything, council, anything else?
Yeah, I would recommend that, I don't know if I do that now or do that when we actually are in session. I don't know if it needs to be advertised, but I would like to advertise it with my proposal of not allowing the freestanding signs on the R1, 3, and R4 on the lagoon side, and instead utilize the ordinance that's already written for the number signs to occur.
Yes, sir. So the typical process is, say I present, and then the city clerk will advertise the proposed ordinance for a period of time, and then you'll hold a public hearing and you'll vote on it. So we need to advertise what you will be voting on. So if you're proposing that change, we can amend what's the draft ordinance that's before you right now. We can amend that, and then the city clerk can advertise that. So everyone will know what's being discussed at your meeting in probably February.
Well, I'd be happy to make that motion if it's necessary.
I would second.
Even though we can't vote, I think you got the message.
I did, yes, sir.
I just want to add a comment for the planning commission and everyone that brought this forward. There's things about that, a sense of place and recognizing this as kind of taking away from what the vision of our city. Some things you don't even notice what is doing that. And so to everyone who brought this forward as an opportunity to clean up and really, beautify our city, say thank you.
Council, any other comments? Audience, anybody? Yes, sir.
Mayor and council, thank you. And appreciate all the participation in all the planning sessions and to give our input. I'm looking for a clarification because I'm not quite sure I understand what Council Dyken is asking for in the proposal to the proposed change. I don't guess I know what it is.
The proposed change would not to allow the freestanding identification signs on West Lagoon Avenue or on West Beach in the R13 or R14 lots. The rationale for that recommendation was for identification purposes because the structures are more than 50 feet from the road. Our ordinance 20-3 already addresses that. So if you're beyond 50 feet from the road, you're required by our ordinance to have a sign for identification purposes. So a marketing management company sign identifying the property is not necessary. It's still allowed on the facade of the building, but will not be allowed as a freestanding sign, in addition to the numerical sign that's required by ordinance 20-3.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering what the objection of the small sign that is identifying the house to the property management company. I mean, it's a business area. I mean, I know it's not a business district. I got corrected on that, but it is a place where you have to have a business license required. I think the city, I think it was under this council, I think it was brilliant to actually have an overlay district that was called the Beach Overlay District because you were out of compliance. It was asking for a business license, yet it was in a district that didn't allow for businesses. So I think that was brilliant. But I will, I know you live down there. I know you live down there. But if you're down on that beach, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but the GPS does not work. We literally test every one of our houses by address, and it gets within about 100 to 200 feet of the house. It does not land you directly on the house. It does not. So if you think it does not. That's Waze, that's Apple Maps, and that's Google Maps. So when you say it lands you dead on the lot, it does not. So GPS is not going to put you on that house. And if these houses, when we're talking about, I know the R1, R14, basically from the 2000 block all the way to the end of the beach to the west, those houses are 100 to 150 feet off of the beach. You cannot see anything from the road. Fish and Wildlife won't let you light the house up. You can't have any identification. So if you put a sign that is this big on a house that's 150 feet off the road back at the house, you might as well not have a sign. You're not going to see anything from the road. And at night, it is people, again, we're there and we're seeing people trying to find the house, and they're literally going 15 miles an hour and pulling off. And, anyway, so I don't understand the objection to having one sign that is the size that we're talking about on one side of the driveway or the other, right at the right of way, to identify both the house, if there's an address on it, the name of the house. I don't understand the objection to that. Our very small company, and we're a rounding area in this market, we deliver over $1.5 million of lodging taxes to this area. And we rely on these signs, and so do our guests, to find these houses. And oh, by the way, when they're driving and they're leaving our area, they're looking for their house for the next year. And when they see the sign, they can identify who we are, and that's how we get phone calls. So although I appreciate that input, if you don't have a sign at the road, you might as well not have a sign, not on that part of the beach, because you cannot see that sign at all, even when it's light out. It's 200 feet from the road, and the sign is literally this big. You can't see it. So I urge the council to. We've been back and forth literally 4 or 5 times on this, and this is a compromise as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it's clutter. Yes, in the dense part of the beach where there's 50-foot lots, yes, that's a little more clutter, but we're a business and we rely on people to find our houses. And I think the sign being one sign that's a 6-foot square foot sign that's nicely placed, I don't think it changes the look of our beach at all.
Are you wanting to put the name of your company on there, or you want to list the house and the number? What are you wanting to accomplish?
It's like a for sale sign. That would be like saying, I'm going to sell a house, but I'm not going to put a for sale sign out because, well, you've got the address and the GPS will get you to the house. So why do we need a for sale sign up to identify the house for sale? What I'm talking about is the real estate sign or vacation rental management signs that identify our house, the house that we manage, to the property management company that manages it. I think that's what you're asking to be put back on the house and only have an address somewhere out at the road. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, that's what the ordinance 20-3 requires.
Right. And so all I'm asking for is having the sign as it stands, again, in the right at the right of way, the 6-foot, one sign that identifies the house. Sorry, that the management company that manages the house, that's the sign. There's some other signs that we've also talked about, and I think I call them monument signs. And these monument signs are, one house in particular has, it's literally looks like the back of an Adirondack chair. It's this big fanned out, it sits in the proper space, it's not in the setback, and it has the name of their house on it. That's a monument sign. That's one of the signs, I'll call it signs, monument that identifies the house name to the house. And I think those are now non-conforming and are allowed to remain in place, correct?
That was that grandfathering clause.
Right. So that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about the vacation rental management sign that identifies who manages the property to the house. That's what I'm talking about.
That becomes, in my mind, an advertising sign for the management company as much as it does location. That, to me, creates a problem.
Yeah, and I would, I think we'll have to agree to disagree. I don't think you're going to change my mind, and I'm not going to change your mind. So I think it's just a point of view here. As the proliferation of vacation rental homes has turned into mini hotels down on West Beach, we have a proliferation of signs as well. And those signs are not just a simple identification. They are advertising for the multitude of companies. And hey, I'm all in support of the vacation rental management companies and what they do for our community. But I personally do not believe that an advertising sign on a residential area where a business is allowed in a residential area is a requirement of doing business. I think the numerical sign in those lots that where the building is beyond 50 feet from the road is the solution. I don't think an advertising management company sign is the solution. And that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand what the problem is for advertising. That's what we do. We're a business. That's what we do. Why is that a problem? I don't understand. And I don't see that as, I think the original messaging was, they're calling it pollution. I think that's a misstep. I just do. And again, I think you're going to hurt my business if you take these signs off the road. You're going to hurt my business.
Jeff, thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Thanks.
Anybody else, same topic?
And Mayor, I just want to reiterate that we're talking about signs and the placement of signs, not what goes on the sign. So just want to be clear about that.
And again, just a reminder, this will not be on next week's agenda. It'll probably be sometime in February.
I have a question. So when I was on the planning commission, this was brought forward and Jeff was there and we talked about what's the reason for these signs. And the sign, when we talked to the vacation rental companies, they said the reasons for these signs is directional. And then we determined that, and I asked, is this directional or is this advertising? And they said directional. Now it's advertising, which we don't want to hurt anybody's business.
Brian Harris said he's the one who said that. Nobody else did.
Okay. Well, because we don't want to take away from business either. I don't think any of us do. My question is there, each one of these signs is unique to that business. 90% of the sign is a logo. So they're all different. So they do look like clutter, like litter, like pollution. Is there a way to have maybe the house name with the rental company number or something that's more uniform where then they could take a picture, but it's not litter? I'm wondering if there's a compromise that it's not, you've got a beach ball here and a palm tree here and a this and a that all over the place, but something more uniform where you do, then if you can't find your house or you do have a question, the number is right there without pulling down the dark 100-foot driveway. Just something to consider. Do you think that would?
If I have to compromise, sorry, if I can go back up there.
We do have people at home, but you got a big voice. Speak loud.
Yeah. If you go to Kiva, if you've ever been out to Kiva Dunes, they don't allow, whatever sign they have out there is a very uniform, two-color, so it would have a name of the management company and a telephone number or a website or something like that. So if you're telling me that I have to do that, or I have to put the sign back on the house that's 150 feet off the road, I would rather do that than to have nothing. Because again, if you're taking a sign and you're putting it on the house, I have nothing. There's nothing there.
There will be numbers, or there should be numbers in compliance with ordinance 20-3 identifying the address of the house. I mean, it's already part of our ordinance. There's a requirement, if your house is beyond 50 feet from the road, to have a number identifying where your property is. So if you're telling me you need a sign because of identifications, that's not accurate, because the accuracy is you are required by ordinance 20-3 to have a numerical sign on your property within 50 feet on the border of the southernmost part of your property to the road to identify the property address.
But I think what he's saying is, yes, he agrees with that, and that their signs are advertising. But is there a way to do something more uniform? Like I know in Hilton Head, they only do colors of the surroundings, so it's browns and greens, so it blends in.
And at night, you can't find your place. I can tell you, I've been up there lost roaming around. So we've got to come up with a better plan than Hilton Head has, for sure. So
So I wish all of our guests were as smart as Councilman Dyke.
Oh, come on, Jeff. That's,
Jason, I've been doing this for 20 years, and people are stupid. And a number, you're advocating something that you think is so true, and I have experience that tells me it's different. And so, like you said, we're gonna agree to disagree, and I'm not gonna convince you, and you're not gonna convince me. So I'm asking for the rest of the council to consider. I don't understand what the objection is, for an advertisement. What is the objection to the advertisement? You're collecting lodging taxes, you're asking me to have a business license, you're asking me to do business in an overlay district, and yet I can't advertise who I am?
Again,
That makes no sense to me.
I would like to reiterate that we're talking about the size and placement and number of signs available on a property. So I understand your concerns are about advertising, but we are talking about the size and number of signs that we are allowing in this area and in this district.
And the placement of the sign.
And
That's the argument, is the placement of the sign. And right now, the placement of the sign is, as per this, what's being presented, is in the R13, 14, from 2000 block on, where the lots are deeper and they're 100 feet wide, is that the sign will be on the post as it is right now. From the 2000 block to the east, it'll have to be mounted on the house. That's my understanding of the placement of these advertising property management signs. What is being recommended is that every one of the vacation signs are now going to be on the buildings, and no difference between the 2000 block east to the 2000 block west, and the only identification is going to be the address of the property, and that's it. And I take objection.
thank you, Jeff. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on this subject? Because we've taken a lot of time on this, but I don't want to leave anybody out that has a point they want to make or a question they want to ask.
Well, Jason, with your recommendation, I mean, I still stand with the recommendation of we don't need advertising signs. I don't know if council wants to consider any other uniform information on there or not, if it will provide the information the businesses need and not heed them from business. But to Jeff's comments as far as, it being business or whatever like that, I am in complete agreement. We don't have advertising down there
Again,
from a uniform.
I would stick to my original proposal with the amendment to not allow those freestanding signs on that area. And if signs are necessary, they should comply with ordinance 20-3 with the numerical sign. And if they want additional signage, they have the right to put the signage on the buildings, just like the rest of the district in the residential area.
and Scott, if we advertise it that way and we come to a different conclusion when the full council is in debate and we're getting more information, we can't change it and vote on it. We got to re-advertise.
No, correct, yeah.
You can't-
After it's
you can't
advertised, it'll
modify
be,
the advertisement.
it'll need to be a yes or no vote after it's advertised.
Let me ask this question then, since we're kind of in a disagreement and two people not here, can we table this with that and have the other two discuss this with us? Would that be,
If you do, we'll have to have another public meeting, and it would be 2 weeks out.
yeah,
Because it won't be next week, because if we can't, we got to advertise it, or however long it'll be if the advertisement comes back. Then we got to start that process all over again, because if we decide to change what has been advertised, we can't vote on it anyway. We have to go back and re-advertise and start that process
so it's gonna
again.
be the same
It will-
time wise
It will
anyway?
it'll be longer, because we'll have to do it twice.
Okay.
So we can't make a decision on anything tonight, other than we know what we've heard? Or do you have a proposal for, we need to think about what we want you to advertise?
Based on what, Councilman Dyken, Councilwoman, Jennifer is, I'm sorry, provided, Guthrie, I'm sorry, my brain stopped working. I can change the language based on what I've heard tonight. I think that's straightforward enough for me to do that.
And then if there's not council approval and support of that, then we'll amend it and re-advertise and have further discussion again.
Let's do that. Let's do that. So. That's it. We're
Thanks,
done
sir.
with that. The next item on the agenda is Chief Nettemeyer. E-bike rental regulations and general use restrictions.
Yeah, so if the length of a presentation causes the lights to dim, I'll try to get us out of here before we're on a full blackout. I'm revisiting a previous presentation where I had come before the council and talked about the number one complaint that we have at the Gulf Shores Police Department here in the city by far. There's not even a close second with regard to public safety matters that the citizens ask us for us to do. How do we get here? This has been a 2+ year process. You know, the e-bikes became a problem. We did engage the community in a big way. We engaged the bicycle committee, and we think we're at a point now where we can present a proposal moving forward. This is not a problem unique to Gulf Shores. This is a problem that is nationwide. And what we have going on here is we have technology going faster than the laws. And I think what we'll come up with tonight will be a very good start for the safety. You know, we've already had 2 tragedies relating to mobility devices. We had a child that was run over, or that was killed on an e-bike, and we also had an adult who was killed on a mobility device. So it's not like I'm coming with something that is really made up, so to speak, to be heavy-handed. This is a serious issue that we're dealing with. We have engaged the rental companies and asked them all to put up this in their business to remind riders of what can happen. One of the rental companies came up with this to also educate the public. And we're still having problems, but the problems are related to further use. So what I have before you tonight are two ordinances. One regulates the rentals, the rental companies and the rentals of e-bikes, and also the general use of e-bikes as we move forward. So as I said earlier, this is a situation, this is nothing new. It's an issue all over the country, and Gulf Shores is not unique in that way. In one way that we may be with regard to the rentals, we have to re-educate every 2, every 4, and sometimes every 8 hours, because renters come in, they rent an e-bike, they get educated and get used to it, and then they move on, and then we have a whole new setting coming in the afternoon or morning. So it's a real issue for us. So the data shows that bicycle crashes remain steady, but e-bike crashes are on the increase. You're more likely to sustain an e-bike or a fatal accident on an e-bike more than any other vehicle. And there's some other things there. The need for speed and restriction and helmet laws are the conclusion that help moderate some of the injuries that do occur. This is from an e-bike company itself, and these are pretty obvious. Impact and force is significantly worse at higher speeds. We all know that. And reaction time is reduced at higher speeds. Speed limits combined with proper gear mitigate risk. I said that earlier. So what we're talking about here is common sense. What we want is a common sense approach to assist on the public safety aspect with regard to regulating the use of e-bikes. And some of this, and I'll talk about this, some of this is new ordinance that we'll be talking about, and some of it is already state law, and I'll have some slides regarding that. So here's some of the proposed requirements for rental companies. First is to get their specific license, and this would include businesses that would deliver into the city for rental. If there's a company out there that wants to deliver into the city of Gulf Shores, this would cover them. And this is a change from what I had previously submitted. Remember, there was some discussion about the 10-mile-an-hour speed limit for the Class 2s. We've gone back to what our original proposal was. What our original idea was and some of the rental companies have already done this voluntarily, on their own, and they'll tell you that their incidents have been drastically reduced as a result of going back to Class 1s only. Class 1 is a e-bike that is pedal assist only. It doesn't have a throttle. It takes that extra mechanism off the handlebars to which there are already all types of equipment, things and devices up there in the handlebars. It takes the throttle off of that. So what we're proposing is we go back to a Class 1 e-bike and ADA compliant devices for handicapped or disabled. Provide an applicable helmet, acceptable helmet to all the renters. Prohibit rentals to renters under 18 unless a waiver is signed by a parent or their legal guardian. Subject to regular inspection by us, so we would be able to go in and make sure that they don't have throttles and things like that, or renting Class 3s and some of that. They would also require them to watch an educational video, which is currently under production by the City Communication Division. We're have them watch so they have a better understanding of the rules of the road with regard to e-bikes. And then advise the renters of the legal requirements. They're doing this now through their contract and things like that. And then they would have to acknowledge understanding all of those things. So that's primarily the rental company aspect of it. So next we have some regulations regarding operation. Now this is where these are written into the ordinance, but a lot of these are already state law. You know, e-bikes fall under the same category in a lot of ways as a bicycle. So all of these are already in place in a lot of those ways, but we're putting them into the ordinance. These are all pretty straightforward, rules of the road type stuff. Wheelies, driving through ditches, driving over culverts, driving more than 2 wide. You know, I said the last time, the issue is everybody needs to get along, and what we really need to do is change the culture here. Pedestrians need to understand they're not entitled to the whole path. E-bikes have to understand they have to yield to pedestrians, and bicyclists have to do the same. So we're going to hopefully establish a culture through the process of education as we move forward, so we can get everybody to accept each other's space. So when we talk about changing culture, this is the big part of it right here. This is requiring when you're passing on an e-bike that you notify the people you are approaching that you're going to be passing on your left, either with a verbal passing on your left signal statement, or the ringing of a bell, so they know you're coming, so they can they know to get out of the way, or they're not puzzled or startled. They can maybe pull their dog back, shorten the leash or something like that as they're coming around the pass. Operating while failing to obey posted signage. This is, again, a lot of this is general rules of the road. Speed limits apply to bicycles and e-bikes, so we're gonna go with that. Posted signage also includes staying out of restricted areas. And one of the last one here is operating or riding as a passenger while under the age of 18 without a properly fitted helmet. We're requiring helmets on everybody under 18 who is going to be riding an e-bike. And then tampering. If you tamper with, reconnect a throttle or adjust the e-bike in some way, it's outlined here in the ordinance for that to be part of this. So this also establishes a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit on all designated sidewalks and multi-use pathways here, or trails here in the city. And the primary ones here are Highway 59 is a designated sidewalk. It's determined to be a designated sidewalk. And then Fort Morgan Trail is what most people commonly know as a trail or a path, multi-use trail or path, used by pedestrians, bicyclists, and e-bicyclists. So there's also some various scattered out throughout the city. So this is these will have signage placed on them indicating that it's a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit on there, what's prohibited, and we're going to start working with the signage with Public Works as soon as this is passed at the council's discretion. Some of the other things we're going to do, and I think these help with the turf war that we have going on, we're going to place a center stripe, hopefully down all of the multi-use trails. I don't foresee us placing a stripe down the middle of the sidewalk on 59. But the multi-use trails and paths, we can place a stripe down the middle of those so people understand what their side is and create more room for other users on that. One other thing, and this is already part of the ordinance, we're going to place some templates down in the Gulf Place area, letting everybody know that it is a prohibited e-bike zone. E-bikes are currently not allowed. Any motorized conveyances are not allowed. E-bikes are not allowed except for ADA compliant, for ADA purposes, are not allowed in Gulf Place. So we're going to make the signage a little bit better. The signs are down there now, but a lot of people are conveniently not seeing them. And then place, like I said, the relevant signage along the multi-use path. Penalties for the rental companies are pretty straightforward from several of the others. It's subject, the primary one here is it's subject to the suspension of a business license. And then we have penalties for users. These are general fines. And, we don't really have the ability to cite a juvenile for a city ordinance violation. We call them UNTCs. But what this does allow us to do at the police department is to impound an e-bike that is being operated in violation of the ordinance or in violation of any of the provisions in the ordinance, and allows us to impound that e-bike. A parent or legal guardian or an owner can then come up to the police department and pay a $50 fee to get that bike out of the impoundment. So it gives us a way to parent some leverage on being able to enforce some of this on the juveniles that are out there driving around town. So as we move forward here, what I'm not talking about in the ordinance is what is already state law, and that is regard to the e-motos. The e-motos are what we're dealing with on a regular basis here in Gulf Shores. The officers are encountering these. They're young kids on them, unskilled and uneducated on knowledge of rules of the road. And all of these are not e-bikes. These are e-motos. An e-moto is a motor-driven cycle. And they are regulated already in the state of Alabama. If it's more than 750 watts, it's a motor-driven cycle. I said this morning in the meeting, I paced an e-moto on the Fort Morgan Trail when I was driving on Fort Morgan Road over the weekend at 45 miles an hour. I don't think anybody wants a situation where having somebody go 45 miles an hour on any of our multi-use trails. These are motorcycles, and they should be on the roads where they were designed to be operated. So if it's more than 750 watts, it's described in the state of Alabama to be a motor-driven cycle. State registration is required, so they'll need plates on them, state tagged. And on top of that, a helmet is required, and use is prohibited under 14 years of age. You have to be 14 to drive one of those, and in order to do that, you need a driver's license on top of that. And what that does is that gives a 14, 15-year-old who normally aren't allowed to drive a vehicle some rules of the road education so they can be on the right side of the road, stop at stop signs, use turn signals, yield to pedestrians, and all the general things, common usage that are part of rules of the road now. And like I said, the motorcycle is required. Now, these will not be impounded by the police department. These are covered under state law. It's an unauthorized vehicle, and they will be towed. That's going to be a little bit higher at the officer's discretion. That's going to be a higher fee that the users will be using. And again, this is not part of the ordinance. This is subject to what is already state law. We understand that this is a big jump. This is going to change the culture in a lot of ways, in a lot of good ways. I've reached out to Dr. Aiken. I don't believe he's here tonight. They have already begun messaging this out to the students at Gulf Shores schools. We put it on our social media, and I believe the city has also shared it. And quite frankly, I've received a lot of positive feedback on that we're in conjunction with this. We're concentrating on the educational aspect of it to get everybody sort of in line and get make things peaceful out there. That's all I have at this point. If I'm sure there'll be some discussion and some questions, and if you have any, I'd be glad to answer them.
Those are not allowed by use on our sidewalks. They have to be on the road.
That's correct.
So again, I think this Christmas, a lot of these things were bought for young kids, because I see a bunch of them riding around the park on sidewalks, and I'm out with them, I'm a runner, and I'm out there dealing with them on sidewalks or on the road with a bunch of really young kids. So I think there's gonna be an educational responsibility from us with the parents as much as the kids, because this is a problem. And these are the ones, I think, at least my history as a cyclist, doing a wheelie on a bicycle, some can do it, but not on a bigger bike. We gotta have a little bike to do that, or you gotta have a properly designed bike to do that. These things, you can do a wheelie in a minute. I see these kids at a stop sign pulling up and showing off and showing out. They're dangerous, really dangerous.
And the results of an injury on a bicycle pulling a wheelie are a lot less severe as a 45-mile-an-hour
Yeah.
wheelie on
With
a
that kind of
e-motor.
power. Yeah. Anyway, just my comments, because this to me is the bigger problem that I see out there, because these things are riding around our park on the sidewalk with younger kids on them, and you've got our community using Sims Park also, and it's not a good opportunity when you get an older person, and I am one, with limited mobility, and you've got around the corner, and here's 5 or 6 of them coming at you. It's a challenge to get out of their way, because they're not paying attention. So, just
Chief,
comments.
Chief, it's gonna be some of the education for people coming to visit our town too on this, so maybe the rental companies can have brochures. I'm assuming we're gonna do something similar to that.
Yes, sir. They're required, in order to rent an e-bike in Gulf Shores moving forward, the renter will be required to watch an educational video similar to the,
No, I'm talking about visitors coming in, renting a house
right.
and bring these bikes into town on their own in their truck. They'll have to be educated not to get on the sidewalks. Certain bikes will have to be on the road.
Right. It's like anything else. That's state law.
Yeah, I know,
It
but
is,
it's
right.
gonna be some education,
Yeah,
because they're gonna ride on the bike trails like you said and stuff.
We'll do our best. We have had some discussions about some assemblies at the schools and starting maybe a Saturday morning educational program to get the kids out there and work on, it's all about skill set in a lot of ways, is getting them better at riding them.
Did I understand you to say that these are not, you can't rent these? We don't have anybody that can rent these? Are these rental capable? 'Cause I thought you said
Yeah, I
they're
don't,
only class
I would
one.
imagine, well, we went through this, if you recall, a few years ago with the motor-driven scooter rentals. These are in that category. These like them require registration. So there were some restrictions placed on motor-driven scooters. I don't know if cycles will fall in that category, but it's probably, that's a good question, Mayor.
I think that's something we need to research and make sure that we don't start something, then we have to stop it.
We definitely don't want these to be rented.
No, I agree.
And go back to my comments, people coming into town, maybe bringing some of these stuff from out of state, renting a house. They somewhere it's gonna have to be educated, because they may somewhere else ride these things 13, 12 years old. So it's gonna be a large education deal for us to move forward with this
Yeah, so
postage.
it is, and Elijah, we're gonna give a little grace period here. We're gonna give a little grace and work on the educational aspect of it. But a couple things that I took out of this slide, or out of this presentation, our nuisance abatement team is out. They're already enforcing these at least the state aspect of it. And we're starting to see a little bit of a trend towards compliance. So that's working. The other thing that I took out of this that you may recall was in the last one, we had the dismount zone from 2nd Avenue South. I pulled that out, but this does provide for the council to establish that as a dismount zone, or this council to establish a dismount zone if you see fit. I think what this will do will solve a lot of our problems, and we'll address the dismount zone in the future if it comes to that. But I think we'll see how this works, and hopefully everyone can use the trails and pathways and designated sidewalks.
At this point, they can take an e-moto and drive up to Gulf Place, get this amount, then walk it in the Gulf Place and put it in the rack if they're going down there to go to the beach.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
But can't ride it in there.
Right.
Any other questions, council, or comments? Hopefully, we've answered some questions that you don't have to ask. Yes, sir. Anybody that wants to come to the microphone, come introduce yourself, and we want to hear from you.
Excuse me. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Brian Christich, owner of Gulf Shores Bike Rentals. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all again. When we review the proposed mobility device vendor ordinance line by line, the reality is that the vast majority of its requirements are already standard practice for local bike rental companies, and in many cases, we already exceed what the ordinance proposes. Section 848 2A and B effectively require the removal or disable of throttles on rental e-bikes. That is the sole point of significant disagreement. Everything else in the mobility device vendor ordinance reflects practices that rental companies already follow. The removal of throttles, however, is fundamentally different. In our professional experience, throttles are not a risk feature. They are an accessibility and safety feature. A throttle is not an easy button or a shortcut for reckless riding. For most riders, throttles function as a backup system that allows safe starts from a stop, balance recovery, fatigue management, and safe navigation of real-world conditions such as heat and humidity. Removing throttles makes the equipment less safe. Alabama Code 325A-267H1 says, following notice and public hearing, a county, municipality, or other political subdivision of the state that has jurisdiction over a bicycle or multi-use path may do both of the following: prohibit the operation of Class 1 or Class 2 electric bicycles on bicycle or multi-use paths if the entity finds that prohibition is needed for safety reasons or compliance with other laws. And B, they may prohibit the operation of Class 3 electric bicycles on bicycle or multi-use paths. This means the city may designate trails or multi-use paths as limited to a specific class of e-bike that applies universally to all riders. It does not say that a city can ban Class 2 e-bikes for rental companies only. This makes sense because it allows for the creation of laws that don't single anyone out and can be applied to all. And it does not put the municipality into the situation of making engineering decisions about what features of a bike are required or not, or which features are safe or not. Mandating that throttles be removed opens the city up to liability concerns when accidents or incidents occur that may have been avoided had a throttle otherwise been available on the e-bike. Alabama state law recognizes that significant concern, which is why the law is written to only permit a municipality to create a law over the path that is within its jurisdiction. Regulate the multi-use path, not the business or equipment. When imposing regulations on a business, a city must first find that restricting rentals is necessary for safety or legal compliance. No local data has been presented to show that rental e-bikes pose an ongoing safety concern. A limited spring break issue during a brief period of unusual high youth activity does not justify regulating an entire industry that otherwise operates year-round without a documented pattern of incidents. The throttle ban also fails to address the specific problem the ordinance is intended to solve. What has been described to the public as a narrow, time-limited issue involving a small number of unsupervised juveniles engaging in reckless behavior. That is a behavior and enforcement issue, not an equipment or mechanical issue. Removing throttles imposes a mechanical change that does not deter reckless riders, but penalizes thousands of responsible riders in order to address a very small number of bad apples. The current approach appears less focused on improving overall safety and more focused on discouraging riding by making e-bikes less functional. slowing bikes down to uncomfortable operating speeds in the first proposed ordinance, or removing key features in the second does not change behavior. It simply reduces participation for responsible riders while doing little to deter the few individuals who are actually causing problems. More importantly, removing throttles eliminates ADA-protected access for riders who rely on them to participate safely. E-bikes and e-trikes qualify as other power-driven mobility devices under federal law, and federal law supersedes local ordinances. Because the city cannot legally verify who needs a mobility device, a throttle ban removes access rather than improving safety and creates potential legal exposure for the city without solving the underlying problem. The safer and lawful approach is to regulate behavior and speed universally, not ban the very feature that enables accessibility. This ordinance would be far more effective if it addressed the real issue directly, which is rider behavior. Education, signage, clear and realistic speed standards, awareness campaigns, supervision requirements for minors, and enforcement of existing rules all target the problem without collateral damage. Changing equipment to compensate for enforcement challenges is neither sustainable or equitable. The question before the council is not whether to improve safety, it is whether the vendor's ordinance as written addresses the actual problem or whether it unintentionally creates new safety, accessibility, and liability concerns while duplicating practices that vendors already exceed. When safety concerns arise in an industry, the solution is not to eliminate the lawful product, but to regulate behavior responsibly. We do not ban cars because some drivers speed. We establish and post speed limits and enforce. We set rules, educate the public, and enforce behavior. E-bikes should be treated no differently. Before moving forward, I'd like to highlight issues that could create confusion, unintended consequences, or enforcement challenges once these rules are put into place. The ADA defines other power-driven mobility devices as any mobility device powered by batteries or other engines that is used by individuals with mobility disabilities for the purpose of locomotion. Federal guidance recognizes that e-bikes and e-trikes may qualify as OPDMDs when used by individuals with mobility impairments. Subsection C of the Mobility Vendors Ordinance allows ADA-compliant mobility devices for individuals with disabilities, while subsection A and B restrict e-bikes generally. The ordinance does not clearly state whether e-bikes or e-trikes used as OPDMDs fall within the ADA exception in subsection C. If subsection C includes e-bikes and e-trikes when used by individuals with mobility devices, then throttles must remain available for those riders as a reasonable accommodation. If subsection C excludes them both, the ordinance risks conflicting with federal ADA requirements by removing access to recognized mobility devices. We respectfully request clarifying verbiage. In the Mobility Device Vendors Ordinance, Section 8-48-2 states that vendors must ensure each operator is equipped and furnished with a helmet. That language does not specify that the helmet must be worn. By contrast, the General Operation of Mobility Devices Ordinance, Section 21-15N, clearly states that a person under the age of 18 must wear a properly fitted and fastened helmet. We are seeking confirmation in writing that the intent is for vendors to provide helmets to all riders, while helmet use is mandatory only for riders under 18, consistent with the general ordinance. I want to briefly address the education requirements in Section 8-49-1 of the proposed vendors ordinance. First, the ordinance requires every individual expected to operate a mobility device to watch a police-produced safety video, but it does not define how long that video will be, if the video will be available in multiple languages, and include closed captioning to ensure all visitors can fully understand the material, how technical issues are handled, or how compliance is verified. We ask the city to clearly define the maximum length of the described video, allow for group viewing where appropriate, and provide a clear standard for proof of compliance. Second, the requirement for a separate acknowledgement signature to indicate that they saw the safety video and were made aware of the operation of the mobility devices ordinance does not work in real-world application. Acknowledgement of this with one signature in a standard waiver should be more than sufficient. There are a few additional points in the general operation of mobility devices ordinance that we believe warrant clarification. Section 21-16A states that the city council designates certain multi-use paths and sidewalks shown in Exhibit A as areas suitable for use by regulated mobility devices and subject to a maximum speed limit of 10 miles per hour. Regulated mobility devices are defined to include e-motos. This language appears to permit e-motos on the designated sidewalks and multi-use paths in Exhibit A, provided they are traveling at 10 miles per hour or less. If that is not the city's intent, the ordinance as written may not reflect the outcome the council is seeking. Additionally, this section specifically authorizes regulated mobility devices on those paths, but does not address traditional pedal bicycles. Bicycles are not included in the definition of a regulated mobility device, and the ordinance does not clearly state whether bicycles are permitted on the same sidewalks and multi-use paths, or whether they are subject to the same 10-mile-per-hour limit. If bicycles are allowed in those areas under a separate provision of law, it raises a practical question: why would two devices operating on the same path be subject to different rules? In the general operation ordinance, a bicycle is clearly defined and regulated. However, in the mobility device vendor ordinance, the term bicycle is notably absent from the list of defined regulated devices. At the same time, the ordinance defines a mobility device vendor as any person engaged in the rental of a mobility device. Yet the term mobility device itself is not clearly defined within the ordinance. Only the term regulated mobility device is defined. This creates ambiguity about whether traditional pedal bicycles are included or excluded from the vendor ordinance, and whether vendors are permitted to rent them under the current framework. Additionally, because the ordinance regulates rental activity within the city limits but excludes bicycles from its defined regulated devices, it may unintentionally exempt the Gulf State Park bike share rental fleet from compliance while applying requirements to others. Their equipment is routinely used on the city sidewalks and pathways. As written, this creates the appearance of uneven application of the rules across similar rental operations. We believe these issues can be addressed through clear definitions and explicit clarification of what equipment is regulated and where. In its current form, the proposed mobility device vendor ordinance introduces significant uncertainty for local businesses without providing the clarity, infrastructure, or timelines necessary for compliance. There is no defined implementation timeline, yet our busiest season begins in approximately 6 weeks. Vendors are being asked to prepare for operational, staffing, equipment, and compliance changes without clear guidance on when or how those changes will occur. Moving forward with an ordinance that contains ambiguity, inconsistencies, and unresolved legal and operational questions risks unintended consequences. Vendors already hold valid business license for 2026, and introducing a new licensing structure without a clear transition period creates unnecessary disruption. A more practical approach would be to defer this ordinance until after peak season and align any vendor requirements with 2027 license renewal cycle. That timeline would allow the city and vendors to work collaboratively on clear language, enforceable standards, and practical real-world solutions that truly improve safety. This raises a practical question about the proposed blanket 10-mile-per-hour limit on sidewalks and multi-use paths in the non-congested areas shown in Exhibit A. Most bicycles and e-bikes do not have speedometers. A 10-mile-per-hour limit creates a rule riders cannot reasonably self-monitor, placing law enforcement in a difficult position and inviting inconsistent enforcement. Bicycles are also not engineered to operate comfortably or safely at 10 miles per hour. Across all bike types, stable riding naturally occurs closer to the 11 to 14 mile per hour range. Below that range, riders must constantly correct to stay upright, meaning many would be speeding simply by riding normally. A blanket 10-mile-per-hour limit in non-congested areas is therefore unlikely to be enforced. That risks creating another rule on the books that undermines respect for the law rather than improving safety. A 15-mile-per-hour cap aligns with how bicycles actually function, preserves accessibility, and provides a practical, enforceable benchmark that allows officers to focus on reckless behavior instead of marginal speed differences. It also aligns with existing guidance. The Alabama State Parks website indicates that when no speed limit is posted, riders should assume a 15-mile-per-hour limit. The Backcountry Trail website lists a 12-mile-per-hour limit for their trails. These standards reflect real-world bicycle use. Fixating on a 10-mile-per-hour limit does not match how bicycles are designed or used, creates confusion, enforcement challenges, and unintended consequences. A 15-mile-per-hour cap supports practical enforcement and aligns regulations with physics and reality rather than theory. If the city believes additional regulation of rental e-bikes is necessary, then there are only 3 reasonable and defensible paths forward. First, the city may proceed with the General Operation of Mobility Devices Ordinance. This ordinance addresses all of the behavioral safety concerns we are trying to solve without the need for a mobility vendor's ordinance. Second, Alabama law already provides the framework for addressing unsafe or reckless operation through universal rules that apply to all riders, regardless of whether a bike is rented or personally owned. That option is to make sidewalks, multi-use paths, and trails limited to Class 1 e-bikes only for all riders. Regulate the multi-use path, not the business or equipment. This law has already been used in the no e-bikes allowed in Golf Place rule. Third, if the city determines that it must regulate rental equipment specifically, then the ordinance should explicitly allow Class 2 e-bikes with throttles capped at 15 miles per hour. That standard aligns with established engineering practices, reflects how bicycles are designed to operate safely, preserves accessibility for riders who rely on a throttle, and avoids forcing the city into making custom technical or engineering decisions outside manufacturer's specification. What Alabama law never envisioned is regulating equipment features in a way that singles out rental businesses, removes accessibility features, or places municipalities in the role of determining which mechanical systems are safe beyond established standards. State laws, regulations of paths and behavior, it does not allow cities to redesign products. In short, if regulation is imposed, a 15-mile-per-hour cap on Class 2 e-bikes with throttles is the reasonable, enforceable, and legally defensible option. A uniform 15-mile-per-hour equipment limit is not about allowing faster riding. It offers practical, defensible path that advances safety without creating new risks. Anything beyond that either duplicates what the general ordinance already accomplishes or creates unnecessary risk without corresponding safety benefit. The general ordinance already addresses the behavior issues that prompted this discussion, particularly those that occurred during last spring break. The concerns raised have consistently pointed to behavior and enforcement, not equipment. Moving forward with a separate mobility vendor ordinance in its current form risks creating confusion, inconsistency, and unnecessary disruption without clear evidence that it will improve safety outcomes. The city has not presented documented throttle-specific data, and the issues described remain behavioral in nature rather than mechanical. The concerns raised tonight do not suggest the city's goals are misplaced. They do suggest that the current framework would benefit from further refinement before implementation. Questions of ADA compliance, enforceability, operational impact, implementation timelines, and consistency between ordinances are not minor details. They are foundational to whether this policy will work as intended. We have deep respect for this council, for the local law enforcement officers, and for the city staff working on this issue. We want to be partners in a thoughtful, informed solution that genuinely improves safety. Our ability to operate depends entirely on keeping our customers safe, and that has always been our top priority. For the many reasons discussed tonight, we respectfully encourage the council to take the time this complex issue deserves, to refine the language, align standards, and work collaboratively with stakeholders before finalizing any vendor-specific requirements. My wife Polly and I would welcome the opportunity to participate in any committee or working group dedicated to improving bicycle safety in our community. We appreciate the council's time, consideration, and commitment to getting this right. Thank you. I did have one other thing. In our last meeting, Mr. Harris had asked about what the age limit was for riding an e-bike. And I had told the council that that age limit was 14 in Alabama. It was that when I first started my business, and I brought some documentation on that, but then it looks like later the state adopted the 3-class e-bike system. When they did that, they no longer have a minimum age requirement. And I just wanted to clarify that with the council. And does anybody have any questions about any of that?
Appreciate your comments. That was a lot. I have to think through it before any questions arise, but you covered a lot of stuff. Is that something that you have in writing that you could share?
I do. I could email that
Please do that.
to council members.
Yes. Email it to our city manager here, and John Walker. Email it to him, and we'll have an opportunity to review that in context with everybody here, because like I say, it was a lot.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's a big issue.
Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I promise to be quick. I just have a few comments I wanted to talk about. As regard to some of the e-bikes, number one, I was going down 59 the other about a week and a half ago. I looked down, I was going 33. There were 2 bikes on the sidewalk going faster than I was, and they were doing wheelies. So you can educate the kids, but they're 14, 15 years old. Doesn't matter what you try to tell them, they're going to do what they want to do. And anybody that's going to deny that, they have their heads not where they're supposed to be. I live on East Second, and we see kids come barreling down that road. There is no sidewalk, so they're just barreling down the roads. They don't stop at stop signs, and they just, a couple of them, I've heard them say, I got it up to 40 miles an hour. Isn't that really cool? So they're not going to follow the rules no matter whether you show them stuff or not. They're just not going to do it because they're 14, 15 years old. And with the e-bikes, you mentioned there'd be inspections. There were 4 kids on an e-bike a couple of weeks ago. One of them got a flat tire, and we had to tell them where they were so they could call in. All 4 of those e-bikes, they were throttle only, and they all had ball tires. So they need to be checked. Do you have a date? This is kind of moving a little bit. Do you have a date for when the pedestrian bridge is going to be done?
I don't have an update. Lee, if you got any type of update on that?
Just
Or
an
Clint?
approximate?
Clint?
The practical date is middle of January next year.
Okay. Oh, so, okay. So are the e-bikes going to be able to go on those pedestrian bridges?
No.
So how are they going to get across the bridge?
No.
Yeah. And same thing with golf carts,
Answer
because
that.
we've added golf carts to a lot of the developments, and are those people going to be trying to get them across?
We're not making accommodations for golf carts or anything to get on that bridge other than pedestrians and regular bikes. You can take a regular bike and put it on there and take it up and ride it over and take it down. There've been no discussion of allowing e-bikes on that pedestrian bridge.
I have, just this past year, I have stopped 3 different times to render aid to people that were on e-bikes that crashed. One lady had a bad head injury, and there were a couple of guys that, one of them was during spring break, had multiple contusions and cuts because I had to get my first aid kit out and take care of them. So they don't follow the rules. They're on vacation, they don't think they have to.
It's dangerous, and one of the things that make it more dangerous than anything else, particularly, is the number of pedestrians that we have that use our sidewalks that are really for pedestrians. And then when you put e-bikes and on sidewalks and on throttles with not inexperienced operators, and you got now you got people in bikes in conflict in contest against each other, and that doesn't have a good outcome ever.
Yeah. The 14-year-olds, they think they're indestructible. So trying to say you're going to educate them, and that's what our responsibility is, that doesn't work. I think any of the teachers that might be here could attest to that. But all right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else? Just a second, sir. I'm gonna let her go next.
Good evening, council. I am Polly Christage, owner of Gulf Shores Bike Rentals. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Please don't repeat what he went through.
No, I have
You got
some new
something new,
information.
that's
I'm
fine.
a lot shorter too. Yeah, I got a page and a half only.
Okay.
We all share the same objective, improving safety for residents and visitors. The questions before you is not whether safety matters, but whether the proposed mobility device vendor ordinance meaningful addresses that goal, or whether it introduces unnecessary legal risk, operational confusion, and unintended consequences. What has been described as the underlying concern is not an equipment issue, but a behavior issue. Specifically, a limited number of incidents involving unsupervised juveniles during a short spring break period. Those situations are addressed through enforcement, supervision, and existing reckless operation provisions, all which are covered in the general operation of mobility device ordinance and apply universally to all riders when enforced. What has not been presented is any local documented data demonstrating that rental e-bikes or throttles pose an ongoing safety concern that warrants separate business regulation. There is no throttle-specific incident data and no rental-specific incident trend. Without that foundation, regulating equipment rather than behavior risks not solving the problem. The concern is amplified by Alabama state law. Alabama Code 325A 267A is clear that an electric bike is afforded the same rights and subject to the same duties as a bicycle. In the eyes of state law, an e-bike is not a separate category of vehicle. An e-bike is a bike. Creating ordinance that single out e-bikes or only rental e-bikes raises legal and liability considerations for the city that deserve careful evaluation before moving forward. The same statute in subsection H1 allows municipalities to regulate the use of e-bikes on specific paths by class, provided that regulation applies universally and is based on safety findings. What the statute does not contemplate is banning Class 2 e-bikes for rental businesses only or requiring removal of specific equipment features. State law allows regulation of where and how a device are operated, not redesigning equipment or determining which mechanisms are safe. That distinction matters. Throttles are not a shortcut for reckless riding. For many riders, they're a safety and accessibility feature that allows safe starts, balanced recovery, fatigue management, and participation for many riders with mobility limitations. E-bikes and e-trikes may qualify as other power-driven mobility devices under federal law, and the city cannot verify who requires a mobility aid. In real-world practice, removing throttles does not prevent dangerous behavior. It eliminates a safety feature many riders rely on, while also shifting liability to the city for a mechanical decision. The proposal to remove throttles from rental e-bikes is an extreme response aimed at stopping a small number of juveniles from riding too fast, but does not actually accomplish that goal. To put it in perspective, we estimate about 800,000 bikers in the city annually, and we are talking about less than 100 juveniles. Removing throttles does not meaningfully reduce speed. With pedal assist alone, riders still reach 16 to 19 miles per hour easily simply by hitting a button, which is exactly how modern e-bikes are designed to operate. Increasing pedal assist requires minimal effort and allows riders, including juveniles, to maintain higher speeds without a throttle. I share this not as an opinion, but to clarify how e-bikes function in real-world use for those who may not have experienced one firsthand. There are also practical enforcement concerns. Most bikes and e-bikes do not have speedometers. A strict 10-mile-an-hour standard, as seen in Exhibit A of the General Ordinance, is difficult for riders to self-regulate and difficult for officers to enforce consistently. Bicycles are not engineered to operate comfortably at that speed. Their natural, stable operating range is between 11 and 15 miles per hour, meaning well-intentioned riders may unintentionally violate that rule simply by riding normally. Rules that conflict with how equipment actually functions are rarely enforced and ultimately undermine respect for the law. Local bike rental businesses already exceed most of the requirements proposed in the vendor ordinance. Helmets are provided, minors are required to wear them. Safety instructions are given, waivers are used. Class 3 e-bikes are not rented. Businesses already operate under valid city license and cooperate with law enforcement. The only provision that cannot be supported is the removal of throttles because it makes equipment less safe for many riders and introduces risk rather than reducing it. The general operation of mobility device ordinance already gives the city the tools it needs to address reckless behavior, speed, and enforcement in a way that's consistent, defensible, and applicable to all riders. That approach regulates conduct and not hardware and avoids unnecessary involvement in equipment decision and ADA determination. For those reasons, we respectfully urge the council to proceed with the general operation of mobility device ordinance once final language is clarified and to table the mobility device vendor ordinance at this time. This path addresses the concerns raised, minimizes legal exposure, preserves access, and allows the city to move forward with clarity and confidence. We appreciate the council's time and consideration, and we stand by to be ready to be constructive partners in improving safety for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to request something from each of you. I waived any rule of time tonight. I cannot continue to do that and have 30-minute presentations, but I don't want to restrict your opportunity to communicate with us. So if you will, the next time we have this meeting, will you email us what you want, and then so you can minimize it down when your presentation is made to where we don't take an inordinate amount of time to hear the same thing again. So if you'll send us an email, then we'll welcome you to the microphone and let you talk about specific points, and we will read the email. If you'll do that for us, it'll allow you to have an opportunity to communicate with us without us taking 30 minutes out of a public meeting, plus or minus, to listen again. So giving you plenty of time tonight. I'm going to ask you for the next time to send us an email, and we'll go from there. Any other? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mike, this is not long. but it does cover some important facts that I think that needs to be brought up. You know, the rental bike industry here is pretty much regulated. We self-regulate. We don't let people ride a bike that we feel that can't ride one. We don't let kids ride bikes with throttles. I mean, I disconnect them each and every time if they're with their family. And I think that the council needs to understand that we do self-regulate. We don't just throw people on a bike and have them go out there and have them tear it up, you know? So we're committed for safety, safe operation, and we have these riders exhibit courtesy towards others out on the trail. You know, it's important for us, for people to come back without blood on them. But even though when they come back with a little blood on them, they still say, I had a blast. And that's what's important. We're in the tourism business. We provide the helmets, we provide the operational instructions, and we encourage protocols out on the trail. I mean, we cover all of this. So I don't see where really the rental industry itself is the problem. In my experience, e-bike riders are typically seasoned cyclists, and what they're doing is many of our older people is transitioning from a pedal bike to an e-bike because of mobility problems. And now you're going to say, let's take away that mobility issue, that throttle. It's not going to work for a lot of them. A lot of them, I mean, I deal with this on a daily basis. They tell me I have a knee problem. I can't pedal. Has this got a throttle on it? It's not about my business and how you're going to cause problems with my business, but it's not right for the tourists that come in that wants to go out and ride the trail and enjoy themselves, that they can't do it because they have a knee or hip problem. I mean, just today I had that situation. I've got 3,000 miles logged out there on the trails, at least. And I've encountered issues where there's kids in groups, little small groups, having a blast and tearing it up. It's an enforcement problem. It's not a rental problem. And it's not rental bikes, it's personal bikes. You won't believe how many personal bikes are out there on the trail. I've ridden along and I go behind groups that are rental bikes, not my companies, but rental bikes. They're just having a blast and they're following the rules and they're being safe. So you're going to say, look, you people we're going to clamp down on you, but we're going to let these kids that bring their personal bikes in just do whatever they want. That's back to an enforcement problem because those people aren't going to watch the video that the police department's making. They're not going to see it. They're going to be out there riding class 1, class 2, class 3 bikes, full throttle, because they're not being regulated. You're actually, I'm going off kilter here because here's the statistics. Go out and do it yourself. Ride out and drive around out in the state park campground early in the morning before people get out riding on bikes. You're going to find about half of them have e-bikes, and I've done this myself. Half of them are bringing their own e-bikes from home and riding their e-bikes, which are totally unregulated. State Park has 496 spaces. That's about 400 bikes. Sun RV Park has 500 spaces in their RV park. They're in orange, so they're not regulated. And they bring 2 or more bikes. That's 600 bikes in that one RV park. Then you have Sun RV Park. They have rentals, beach bikes out on Orange. It has rentals. There's another 40 bikes. In total, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but you're going to have at least 1,300 bikes, possibly on the trail, but only 170 are going to be regulated. That's the inventory that we have as far as in the rentals. We have 240 roughly rentals out there available, but we're going to be happy to rent 70% of our rentals. That's just a little over 100 bikes on the trail, or under 200 bikes when you actually have about 1,300 that's citizens' bikes and other people's bikes that's bringing them in here. They're not going to be regulated. They're not going to see Dan's message from the police department on safety and so forth. They're not going to see the video. This is just kind of like crazy. You want to regulate 10%, but you're going to let the rest of them just go crazy. We're going to have to come up with something comprehensive. And what I propose is, I haven't seen it yet, but where's the study? The city doesn't do anything. They don't put up a stop sign, a traffic light, or change speeds without a study. Where is the study that says only the rental business is the problem? That we already do regulate our people. Where is the study? I think it's what we need to do is come up with a study, sit down, let the industry people help the police department or whoever come up with the committee, and let's go out and do a study and find out who is the problem. Because what you're going to do is you're going to regulate just the rental industry, but you're going to let everybody else just go free. And I don't think the chief is going to go out and put 5 or 6 people out on the trail to make sure things are right on bikes. I mean, so I think we need to step back and create a study, find out where the problem is and who are the problem makers, and let's nip this in the bud the first time instead of just going and stabbing the rental industry and saying, oh, that's going to solve it. It's not going to solve it. The people that I send out are not crazy riders, they're not young punks on bikes. You're just gonna put the squeeze to people that are just out paying to have a good time, and you're not going to solve anything. This is not going to solve anything at all. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Can I make a comment?
No, I gave you a half hour. We're not gonna go there again. We've got one gentleman in the back that's raised his hand about 10 times, and I haven't gotten to him yet, so.
My name's Gary Phelps. I'm a retired St. Louis City police officer, and I've handled more vehicular homicides than anybody in this room. And the chief gave an excellent presentation based on facts. I live down off of Fort Morgan. I passed those, driving down, and next thing you know, they're passing me. And I'm doing 30, 35 miles an hour. And like I said, I've handled a lot of these vehicular homicides. Nobody else here in the room has. And when you reach down and you pick up that pile of goo that used to be somebody's brains because they interceded with a 3,500-pound vehicle and they're deader than a doornail, well, maybe the chief can invite everybody over here and take a look at the deceased on the road. It's an ugly sight. And I would certainly heed the chief's recommendation. And that's about all I'll say.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
Hello, Les Roseanne. I'm a seasonal owner in the village of Craft Farms. I have addressed you before and I've provided some documentation for the chief. I went through, I had a couple questions. First one was state law in Alabama says not even a bicycle on a sidewalk, which I don't agree with. Am I wrong?
It's a state law.
State law, not even a regular pedal bicycle on a trail. You have designated the 59 sidewalk as a sidewalk. It used to be designated, I believe, as a multi-use trail. About 2018, the city expanded those sidewalks. And I looked as hard as I could find today to find news accounts of that. But I believe there was comments about this will enable that sidewalk to be used more like a multi-use trail, which would account for bicycles. This before the e-bike thing hit. So you had raised an issue about bicycles on sidewalks. And in Alabama, state law, you can't have anything. That puts everybody in the road, which is a problem. Chief, you had in your definitions on the general ordinance, not the rentals, you had indicated a motor-driven cycle is a motor scooter, also commonly known as an e-modal, and is further defined in Alabama Code 32-1-1-1, parentheses 37. Right underneath that is a motorized scooter, is a two-wheeled electric scooter with an upright handlebar and rectangular platform on which a rider stands. State law, and it may be something I couldn't find, state law says, number 37, a motor-driven cycle, every motorcycle, including every motor scooter, with a motor that produces not more than a 5 brake horsepower nor exceeds 150 cubic centimeter engine displacement and weighs less than 200 pounds, fully equipped, and every bicycle with a motor attached. The term does not include electric bicycles. All of the definitions in the state law never say motorcycle.
It's right there. That's where it's defined.
Well, that's defining gasoline engines.
If read it again, if you don't mind.
Sure. Motor-driven cycle. Every motorcycle, including every motor scooter with a motor that produces not more than 5 brake horsepower nor exceeds 150 cubic centimeter engine displacement and weighs less than 200 pounds, fully equipped, and every bicycle with a motor attached. The term does not include electric bicycles.
That's it. Every bicycle, it's basically a bicycle with motor attached. It's not an e-bike. That came from the city attorney.
Okay. Well, it's not really clear here that, because I think the state hasn't defined what an e-motorcycle is. I mean, they don't have a definition that says e-motorcycle. So, as it stands now with your ordinance, those e-motos would have requirement that they have a plate on them registered by the state?
That's correct.
Okay. I won't take up a lot more time. It's just that I don't understand on the 59. I understand your dismount things that were produced or discussed at the last meeting. I think some of the rental units are on 59. The people are going to have to walk to be in compliance with the law, push a bicycle to wherever they're going to be going to ride. I don't know, and I'm not here in the summer, so things are worse, probably much worse in the summer. I've been here a couple times, but it's a ban, and can't really get around state law, but you don't want everybody at 59 either. I mean, I'm former law enforcement. You don't want one of these little scooter things going down 59. You don't want kids, young kids on bicycles, regular bicycles, learning how to ride. You don't want them, I don't know. So
It's a designated sidewalk along 59, so it would be exempt from putting them in the street on 59. 59 is a designated sidewalk area. It was in the map.
Yeah, but that doesn't, it indicates it's a sidewalk.
Designated sidewalk.
Do you mean multipurpose trail?
It doesn't say
Similar, it's separate from that. If you look at the,
It's confusing. There's a multi-use trail, there's a designated sidewalk, and there's a sidewalk. So the multi-use trail, all vehicles, pedestrians, and then the designated sidewalk is like the one on 59 where you can ride your wheels. Regular sidewalk, any of the sidewalks not on that map, bikes off the road, everyone off the road.
Yes.
That just wasn't really clear the way it was
the
presented.
map here shows two different colors. The one that goes primarily north and south is the area of 59 designated as a designated
I'm
sidewalk.
aware of what the difference between a designated sidewalk and a sidewalk is.
Well, you are now.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay,
thank you.
We've got 6 more things not related to bikes, so we're gonna have to move on for this evening. So, next item on the agenda is, Noel Hand, you've got 4 things for us.
Try to be very quick with this, but this is the Gulf Shores High School. I have a presentation. There we go. So first, we want to be able to discuss the IT and the AV audio-visual budget. We originally planned for 1.3 million in the budget for the soft costs, and then over the summer we narrowed that down and got a budget of 977,500. So in the 2 contracts that I'm proposing with you today comes out of that 977,500. So the first one will be CMA, which is the plan to allocate, was established technology, and I'm sorry, the original budget of this, I just went over that. We recommend a portion of this revised budget and for CMA of $618,337. And this is for the internet portion of the schools It drives all data, communications, and security systems. It's a central network for the overall system in the building, and it also correlates with the existing systems. And also they're on the Omnia purchasing agreement, so we'll be able to buy outright from them. But we've been working with them for over a year. So that's the first contract, and I can keep on going, or?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because they go together.
Yes, sir, they go together. Don't know what happened there. So our second one, it's part of the IT and the audio visual, is RJ Young, and the amount of $315,430. And so this is a standardized and modernized instructional technology across the classrooms, labs, and specialty spaces. And so this is really going back to the background I just explained. These two budget items come out of the soft cost of $300,015,430. Apologize against on this, but what is being purchased? So in this AV is display TVs throughout the school. So we have 34 units, 44 units, 8 units of displays throughout the school, and this will be used in the science lab and the career tech spaces, special education rooms, and specialized area throughout the school. So this is a collaboration for the presentation spaces. We have AV control, connectivity, and the infrastructure installation, which will support all this equipment. And then, of course, we have the warranty and training support. And so we recommend the contract to go to RJ Young for the AV and audiovisual equipment in the amount of $315,430. So those are the two contracts that go into the soft cost of the IT and AV, which comes around $40,000 under budget.
Well, you originally, if I understand, you originally had a budget of 1.3 million, and you valued, engineered that down to 977,000, and these two together are $40,000
under that
amount.
Yes, sir. So we began with 1.3. That's right. And so then over the summer, we got it to 977.5. And so now we've got it 40,000 under that, what we revised the budget with. So that's where we are. I just wanted a background. We're doing everything we possibly can to keep the prices down and working with vendors.
How long does the equipment last usually?
So we have a warranty. I believe it's 4 to 5 years. It's different on different equipments, but we have a warranty on these items. It's either 4 to 5 years.
Do they need to be replaced typically within that?
I
Or
don't,
like after that, I mean?
the school will need to place them, yes.
And technology will advance over there.
Yeah, I'm sure something will come up. So those were the two items for the IT AV, and so the next item want to be.
Any questions
Oh, I'm
on
sorry.
those two issues of what we're doing, and particularly related to the overall budget of the two of those, and how that, or cost of those, and how that relates to the budget that we produced and sticking to? Any questions or comments? Council or audience? Okay, no, you can go to the
Okay,
next.
sorry about that. I was trying to rush through that, but now, so this is the Gulf Shores High School for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So this was a line item that we had budgeted in the beginning of the project at $3,850,000. And so that consisted of the interior furniture, athletic equipment, outdoor furniture. So we had the city and the interior design team. We've been working with the designs and for the furnishings. And so one of the first contracts I wanted to discuss was give it to, Interior Elements in the amount of 3.2 million. So it's under the 3,850,000, but the first contract's going to be 3,200,000 for Interior Elements. And they take care of all the furniture for this is like this is the type of furniture. I didn't put the whole slides in here, but there are flex suites in the classrooms. There's a study cafe, the hangout studio, classrooms, labs. There's the aviation lab. the Volker Lab. So these are the type of, furniture that's going in for the 3.2 million. It's just a lot of furniture to outfit. So we do have a state purchasing contract to buy direct from them. So this doesn't go through the contractor, it's going directly through the city. So that, out of the 3.85, we're purchasing 3.2 to interior elements to go to that contract. So we'll need to approve that contract for them. So I got one more, but if you want to discuss that one.
Any questions or comments on this for the FF&E budget? Okay.
Okay. And so our next one will be for athletic equipment. That is. So roughly the same thing. We're dealing with that 3.85. Now we got 650,000 left out of that budget. And so we want to be this, so we have a proposal from Advantage Sports and Fitness. They're a Sourcewell contract, and they gave us a proposal of $450,000 to provide and install conditioning equipment in the athletic field house for the schools. So now you take that 450,000 is going towards the athletic equipment. So that's the weight room overview of the, there's more stuff with it, but that was just an overview picture of what we will be getting from Advantage Sports and Fitness.
Any questions or comments on that portion of this presentation?
You cut about 200,000 out of the main thing.
Yeah, so there's 200 left.
Separated the 3.8 with the furniture and athletic equipment. You separated it at 3.2 for furniture and 450 for that.
Yes.
So you at the end of the day, it's about 200,000.
That is correct. It's right around 200,000. We still have more furniture. We have outdoor furniture to be able to get. So, but that's not going to go through council. That's just still that's left over. So we still have 100. We're still looking at to be able to be a savings, overall savings. So we work very diligently to find those savings as much as possible.
Any questions or comments from Noel on this presentation? Thank you, Noel.
Okay.
Grant, you got a couple things for us?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. So I've got two things that we'll be asking you to vote on next Monday. The first will be the 47th Annual Mardi Gras Parade application, February the 17th at 10 a.m. on Highway 59. So this is a map of the route, which you'll notice here, the times for the actual road closures or interruptions are not on this. We will have those ready for you next Monday. We're still working with police and public works to make sure that the timeline is tightened up to the best of our ability. The parade travels south on Highway 59 between Clubhouse and East Beach Boulevard. Staging will occur on West 22nd Street between Fort Morgan Road and Clubhouse Drive. Timeline we'll be getting to before next Monday's action. And we do want to remind our public that we're still taking applications. Completed applications along with the $25 fee will be accepted through Friday, February the 6th. Something coming up is we will be announcing the Grand Marshal, but just a little teaser for the future. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions about the Mardi Gras Parade.
Any questions?
No?
You can go.
All right. And then the second large group activity permit is a repeat event here in Gulf Shores. It's We Run This Beach Marathon. This is a 5K and 10K race, which will take place on Saturday, February the 21st. And then a half marathon and full marathon, which is a Boston Marathon qualifier, would take place on Sunday, February the 22nd. All of this activity takes place in and around the Gulf State Park and the trail system. So on the Saturday, both the 5K and the 10K routes start on the north side of the highway. They start at Lake Shelby, and then they will stay within the state park trail system, so there's no impact to roadways on the Saturday races. On Sunday, there is a small impact to the roadways. You'll see the circles. The staging area is here at the Gulf State Park Pavilion. Runners will run across Beach Road and enter the State Park Trail system at the old Campground Road. So there's a small portion of the road that'll be coned off. The rangers for the state park handle the road closures, and it's about a 10-minute road closure only when people exit the parking lot and end up back into the trail system. this is the overall marathon that's a Boston qualifier. This application has been approved by all of our departments, and its recommendation will be for you to approve this application next week. Any questions? Happy to answer.
Any questions, anybody? The only significance of a Boston qualifier is it is measured to the exact distance of 26.2 miles. Then that allows it to be certified. Once that distance is certified and the timing system is certified, then it becomes eligible for qualification. So,
Thank you.
for what that's worth. So that ends the presentation, the agenda for tonight. In the essence of time, I don't have any updates to continue forward on. So we'll work toward next Monday with as many of these that do not have to be advertised and are ready to come forward. We'll get them on the agenda. We'll be posting that next Thursday. You'll know exactly what we'll be doing and what will be on there. Some of these require advertisements. Not all of them do. Some of them, we may take more time to get to where we think they're ready to be presented and discussed. So can't tell you what's going to be and not going to be on next Monday's agenda, but I can tell you for sure we will post that on Thursday afternoon.
If there's anybody else.
Pardon? Yeah, anybody here that had any other thing, any separate thing to bring forward?
Motion adjourned.
Second. We have a motion and a second. We stand adjourned. Thank you. Appreciate your patience.